This is Marty with Marty's Diesel, and today I'm going to be reinstalling this customer's exhaust manifold setup that we basically just had the mating surfaces machined down. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get the bell side machined down, but we're going to take care of that with a wire wheel before it goes back together. But today I'm going to be installing our stainless steel exhaust manifold hardware kit. This is a very cheap and inexpensive way in order to make sure that you never have to worry about bolts not coming back out again or even becoming seized inside the actual manifold itself. I've been doing this stuff since probably 2010, 2008, something like that. And we actually recently had a truck come in here, I think it was like in 2021, 2022, where we had done this about 10 years prior, and the bolts all came out with a 3/8 hand ratchet. So I'd like to show you why or what I do, and that's why I do it. So here we go. The kit is simply going to consist of 16 of the bolts that hold the exhaust manifolds in to the head itself, and then it'll come with 4 new bolts and nuts for the up pipes. Now, these are stainless steel and they are serrated flange nuts, okay? So when you tighten them down, they're going to be locked on there. I always recommend that you install the bolts from the top. Basically, in the event that somehow it does come loose, basically it's going to keep the up pipe in line with the manifold. One of the only things that I really need when I'm doing this is a set of exhaust manifold gaskets and then some of this anti-seize. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by getting these bolts prepped. Realistically, all of the bolts I like to put a little bit of anti-seize on the bottom thread, but on this one, I make sure that I put anti-seize on the top threads as well. And that's because this one is your locating or centering hole for the exhaust manifold. Notice that none of the other holes are that size. And I do want to backtrack for 1 second and let you know that these bolts, being stainless steel, will never get stuck inside the manifold here, okay? And because of that, the reason that I use a stainless steel is because of that. But just understand that sometimes when you go to take these apart, you may end up breaking them, but I've never stripped a single set of them, and I've never had them stuck in the exhaust manifold themselves. So what I've always found is that if at least I need to get this thing apart, I can always just break the bolts and then the up pipe / manifold connection is off. It has been far better than using the OEM hardware, the OEM or even like aftermarket, like Dorman or even Amazon or eBay specials or whatever. This hardware right here has never let me down. In the event that it doesn't want to come apart, which seems like a good idea to me, I just break the damn things. And it's not that hard to actually break if you've got some good 3/8 hand tools. So I'm going to put the phone down for a second. I'm going to get started anti-seizing some of these things up. And I'm actually going to install the passenger side one on today's video. The driver side one is pretty much the same with one less step. So I'm going to start on getting this together. I'm going to go grab my manifold gaskets and get started. Okay, I've got my anti-seize put on these bolts. This is some nickel anti-seize. It's extremely high temperature. From memory, I think it's something like 2,500 degrees. Let me see. Oh, 2,400 degrees, sorry. And also, we use some stainless steel lock washers. Now, you're going to find some people online that'll say, oh, this will never work. Well, whatever. It absolutely works, and proof is in the pudding. I've been doing it this way since the trucks were damn near new, and like I said earlier in the video, I have had trucks, and we're in the Rust Belt. I've had trucks come back in, and I'm able to take these things out even when the entire rest of the manifold is rotted away, and these bolts still come out without issue. So I'm going to continue using these, and they're actually cheaper than factory Ford. And we sell them in an entire kit that makes it real simple for you guys to get. So I'm going to go ahead and get the manifold gasket and the manifold set up on the block, and I'll be right back. All right, continuing on, here is a set of gaskets that I like to put on. There's your part number. There is also a set of stamped steel gaskets that are available, and everybody has their opinion on that as well. But the most common thing that I see people complain about with this style gasket is the fact that they say that, you know, the gasket blows out, or like, you know, this material right here falls apart within like 5 years or whatever. Okay, that might be true, but what matters is this little ring that goes around the exhaust port. That guy is steel, and that's what gets crushed into the block, into the head, I should say. And I've ran these particular gaskets on trucks that make 600-700 horsepower for many, many years, and I don't experience any exhaust leaks from them. So while there is another option, which is a stamped steel style, typically I get those from like International. I believe I have both sets available on our website. These are the ones that I'm going to be using on today's episode. Okay, we got a nice machine flat surface here, and this is something that I actually want to point out. Notice how when I put this gasket on here, and as long as I install it properly, I can get this gasket to go properly over top of all of the exhaust ports. Give me 1 second, it's taking forever here. So anyway, that's something that I've noticed with the aftermarket exhaust manifolds where you can't physically get the damn things to line up. There's been a couple of other issues that I've had with the aftermarket exhaust manifolds, and this is off just a hair right here, but either way, this is still a lot better than what I've experienced with some other aftermarket exhaust manifolds. So typically here in the Rust Belt, it sucks because these manifolds are becoming harder and harder to find in decent condition. And what we're doing here is I am milling these flat. I've been doing that for a while, and in the past what I've been doing is basically just taking like a wire wheel to this location here, but I'm trying to find somebody that can actually like remachine that surface locally for us here at Marty's Diesel, but it needs to be a reasonable price. Like obviously we're not going to spend, you know, $500-600 like, you know, resurfacing this or, you know, doing whatever. We'll figure something else out if that were the case. To my knowledge, BD exhaust manifolds, BD Diesel, they don't make an exhaust manifold for the old body style 7.3 at the moment, but I do kind of wish that they did, because even though this customer really is, you know, not interested in spending $600-800 on a set of exhaust manifolds, it would be a great option for guys that are looking to do that. And just for one more look at centering up the exhaust manifold on the gaskets, I was able to use 2 hands there, and it's pretty good. I would say they're probably less than a 1/16 or a 32nd of an inch off total. So it's pretty good. All right, one thing that gets the rookies every time, especially when you try to set this up here with the 2 bolts holding it in at the distance here, is that the gasket actually has to pass behind the dipstick tube. Okay, so what I do normally is I get the rearward bolt and the forward bolt. I just barely get them spun in, just a couple threads. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with that middle bolt. And that middle bolt is going to be the one that I draw up to the engine first. And I never tighten down any multi-bolt system individually. I make sure that all of the bolts are tightened down, like, or not tightened down, but drawn to where they're about 1 thread away from being tight before I tighten the middle one down. So hang on a second here, I'll be right back. Okay, I have all the exhaust manifold bolts in. They are all started by a couple of threads, and you'll notice that this one here, that is the alignment one, is a little bit further in than the rest. This is going to be the one that I draw up first, but I will get all of these bolts to where they are about 1 thread away from being tight before I tighten anything down. Now, you will notice too, there's a little bit of play in this gasket. Typically, as I'm tightening them down as well, before I get the first one, I will make sure that I split the difference. So see how like there's a little bit of up, there's a little bit of down, there's a little bit of forward, there's a little bit of rearward? What I'll do is I go a little bit forward, a little bit up, and that's where I'll be when I tighten the bolt down. And this just helps try to make sure that this gasket stays centered around those exhaust ports, which is what I want. And what I'll do is I'll come through here as well, and I'll start in the center and work my way out. So like I'll do this bolt, that bolt, this bolt, that bolt, this bolt, so forth and so on until I'm done. And then I'll go back through and I'll torque them all. From memory, they go to like 43 foot-pounds or something like that. I'm sure you guys can look it up. Doesn't really matter at this point. But let me talk a little bit more about why I'm going back in with a factory manifold instead of just buying some like $100 Amazon ones or eBay ones, or even the ones from like the local auto parts store that are about 200 bucks. I have installed tons and tons and tons of these manifolds back when you could get them from Ford, and I never had one break. Pretty much every time I order the aftermarket ones, they will break usually on the final torque of this one or on the final torque of this one right here. And they'll do the same thing on the other side. So much, in fact, that anytime we do put aftermarket exhaust manifolds on, which I hate doing, I will buy 2 or 3 sets so that I'm not held up. There's nothing worse than finding one of these things get cracked on install, and then you've got to get affirmate the truck and wait on the parts store to deliver you another one. So if you are going to install aftermarket exhaust manifolds, that's just fine. Just understand that if you run into a quality control issue, you better make sure that you've got another setup there local available to you, unless, you're just rebuilding your truck and the cab's up in the air and it doesn't matter if it takes an extra couple days. But that's why I'm resurfacing these manifolds. These manifolds were in great shape, especially for this area. This guy bought the truck from out of the area, and really the only other thing I want to do is get in here. I got a cup with a wire wheel that'll just go right over top of that, and it'll, prep that surface up. So all that's left to do now is basically the centering, tightening these down by hand, and I work my way from the middle out, and then after that I come through and I torque them from the middle out, and then I go all the way down the line. A lot of times too, what I'll do is I'll come back after the truck's been run and I'll do a hot retorque on them as well. It is a little bit difficult to get a torque wrench up in here when you're, when the truck's hot, but it's something that I like to do after the truck's been run. So that's all for today. Hope you guys enjoy.